Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman, hard-hitting talk. Wow, we got so much to cover, so little time. Incredible hour talking about George Washington's birthday with Dr. Scott Bradley was last hour. I'm just telling you, brilliant stuff from the good doctor. His website, freedomsrisingsun.com. His incredible book, To Preserve the Nation, chapter 15, I think it is, or 16, one of the two, discusses George Washington, what a leader he was, and why he has a preeminent place in America. And why we shouldn't call it President's Day. It's officially still George Washington's birthday, and I aim to keep it that way. So we're celebrating, and we want to celebrate with our dear friend Lowell Nelson, campaignforliberty.org. Welcome to the George Washington's birthday celebration edition of Liberty Roundtable Live, sir.
I am happy to join George Washington's birthday celebration with you, Sam. This is awesome.
Anyway, we had a great time talking about how unique he was as a leader. He always had the opportunity to take more power, but he never did. And we're hoping that Donald Trump can decide that he wants to be like George Washington. What do you think of that?
That would be a welcome change. I mean, there's some good things that Trump has been doing, but by and large, he just doesn't have the foundation that George Washington has, or that George Washington had. I mean, that would be awesome if that could come true. We can continue to pray and hope that happens, but I don't think it will.
I understand. And we celebrated last hour as well by finishing up talking about Senators Rand Paul and Mike Lee put together a bill. It's called Senate Bill 3853. And Senate Bill 3853 aims to jettison the Ronald Reagan era 1986. We're going to protect the vaccine companies and put taxpayers on the hook for it. And well, that's going away if Rand Paul and Mike Lee have any say in it. So Senate Bill 3853 is designed to jettison that and say, hey, you should be able to sue vaccine makers. You should be able to sue anybody if there's a redress of grievance, no special protection for you. So shame on Reagan for getting that done, and hopefully we can reverse it. Don't know what co-sponsors are on there yet. Have to study the bill, but I saw it and thought it was at least worth a celebration. Lowell?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I hadn't known. Yeah, I'd heard about a bill in the House that would do that, make the manufacturers liable again for any damages caused by their products. But this is good news. So it sounds to me like there's probably one in the Senate as well as one in the House. They often do that, get two bills going at the same time, and then assuming that there are small or minor differences in the bills, they'll have a conference committee decide, hammer out, the compromise. And then it becomes law if the president signs it. So that's very encouraging. I think they ought to be held liable for the damage they cause. It's just like any other product or service that's out there in the marketplace. You provide the product, you provide the service, and if it causes harm to somebody, you should be responsible for that. You should own that. Anyway, yeah. So that's encouraging news, Sam.
We take any encouragement we can get, folks, because we need it. And we pray you celebrate George Washington's birthday all day by studying who he was, what he stood for, why he did what he did, and more, because, man, is there an education in that, to say the least. Speaking of good people doing good things, Ron Paul's got another incredible column out, Lowell.
Sure does. He's chastising Republicans for saving the Department of Education. Trump, like many of the presidents before him, said he would shut down the Department of Education, man. I remember when Bush said that. Anyway, Trump said that if he elected president, that's what he was going to do. Well, Ron Paul reminds us that, quote, created in 1979, the Department of Education has spent many billions of dollars and imposed numerous reforms on America's schools. A result has been a continuing decline in American students' academic performance, end quote. Now, the thing that's striking to me about that reminder, Sam, is that the Department of Education was not, it's not very old. It's one of the most recently created departments, agencies back in Washington, D.C. See, 1979, that's just about 1980, right? 40 47 years ago, and so it's relatively youngster, among all the other agencies that we have back there in Washington, D.C. And just like Ron Paul observes, our test scores have declined, and have steadily declined since 1979, since the Department of Education was created. Well, last March, Trump signed an executive order calling for the elimination of the department, and that was great. I mean, that was great news. And since then, Education Secretary Linda McMahon has been transferring various Education Department activities to other agencies. For example, it was announced that some activities of the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education would go to the Labor Department. But Dr. Paul raises a very obvious point here. Quote, while these changes can reduce the power and reach of the Education Department, they do not ensure a reduction of the federal government's role in education, end of quote. Well, he's spot on there. I mean, what good is it going to do us if when we want the Department of Education eliminated, we don't mean that it's, whatever activities they're doing are transferred to other departments and then you just get rid of, the Department of Education while their activities continue in other agencies. That doesn't do us any good at all. And so we just don't want the federal government meddling in education.
In fact, it adds insult to injury, because when you put, for example, when you start to put education sections in the Labor Department, pretty soon what you're going to get is you're going to get unions, you're going to get labor, you're going to get all the labor laws and rules and guidelines, and that's going to eventually worm its way into education too. So when you move these, quote, responsibilities to other agencies, what you do is you give those other agencies almost more power to do what Education Department couldn't do. Let me give you another example. Take health care or health issues. They're saying, we got to have all these children take psychiatric evaluations and everything. And the Education Department has no authority to get that done. But if you move it to the Health Department or the Department of Health and Human Services or whatever you want to call it, you're going to get a situation, the National Institutes of Health, whatever. You're going to all of a sudden give it a lot more mojo to mandate than you could under the Education Department. So not only is it disastrous, and it's not ending the Education Department, it's just a big lie, but it's actually, in my opinion, concentrating power and making it worse. They can concentrate power by downsizing organizations, or by consolidating organizations, or by dividing organizations. I mean, it doesn't matter. Every time they use it to advance power. And this is what I'm concerned about with this Education Department. So Ron Paul is spot on this, where he's pointing this out and saying, guys, you got to be really careful. Trump made it sound like he was really for ending the Education Department, but watch what they do, not what they say, Lowell.
Very true, Sam. And we need to blame Congress for this. Congress is the one who created the Education Department in the first place, and they are the ones who are continuing to fund the Education Department, and so I don't believe all the blame goes to Trump. I think most of the blame should be laid on Congress, right? So, the bill, the appropriations bill that Trump signed last week, that bill was passed by Congress, and it was passed by a Republican majority in the Congress. It contains a provision requiring the Education Department to, quote, support staffing levels necessary to fulfill its statutory responsibilities, including carrying out programs, projects, and activities, end quote. Another provision in that bill prohibits the Education Department from transferring funds to other government agencies. And that bill also increases the budget of the Department of Education. It's crazy. It's nonsense up there, Sam. You don't get rid of an agency by giving it more money. I mean, it's so stupid what
we should have, Lowell, instead of the Democrats trying to defund everything because they say we shouldn't have, Tom Holman and company doing the ICE stuff. We should have the government being shut down because the Republicans are going to demand the Education Department go away, and the Democrats want to keep it. So the Republicans should be saying, hey, we're just keeping a Donald Trump promise here. The American people wanted it. They elected Trump. It was a mandate. We're going to back that play. But see, we're doing nothing of the sort. So what you got is Congress then sold Trump down the river. And then Trump basically signed it because, he's kind of forced to, or else he gets the whole blame. And without proper framing, the blame goes south. And so how much political capital can you expend on it? Well, given the current state of the affairs, not much. So sadly, we missed an incredible opportunity, is Ron Paul's point, and I think he's spot on, Lowell.
Absolutely right. Yeah. So how are we going to get rid of the Department of Education? Congress doesn't have the guts to do it. The president won't take the bully pulpit and, bull by the horns and do it. Well, the answer is the states, right? We need our public servants in the states to wrestle control of education back from the federal government. Just take it back. Return control of the states, the communities, and most importantly, Sam, return control of parents. That's where the education responsibility lies in the first place, is with parents. Sam?
Amen. Couldn't agree more, ladies and gentlemen. The states need to take it back. The problem is they're all on the dole. So the first thing we got to do is get off the dole, say we won't take the money, and then stand for the sacred cause of liberty.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
Gentlemen. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Lowell Nelson riding shotgun this morning with your host, Sam Bushman, here on Liberty Roundtable Live. As we have discussed in recent weeks, President Trump has used ICE to fulfill his promise of aggressive enforcement of immigration laws. But he does so while cutting constitutional corners. Quoting Judge Andrew Napolitano here, quote, even to the point of arresting Americans, immigrants, and aliens without arrest warrants, arresting infants, and killing 2 Americans who pose no threat to ICE killers, and then lying about it. Government law-breaking and lying are destructive of our social fabric. We have hired a government to protect our freedoms and enforce the laws, and to do so consistent with the constitutional restraints we have theoretically imposed on all government. End of quote. But folks, it really doesn't seem like the fox is guarding the hens in the hen house very well. Judge Knapp writes this, quote, the Supreme Court has already ruled that even though it is a crime to lie to the government, it's not a crime for the government to lie to the people. This dastardly judge-made rule...
Stop, Lowell. That's something that needs to be changed immediately. Donald and Congress and the Republicans should say, hey, this is unacceptable. We can't have government lying to the people. That should be, in my opinion, 10 times the crime people lying to the government is. Because, again, the government can not only lie, but they can mandate responses and mandate actions based on those lies. And so it's 10 times more dangerous for the government to lie to the people than the people to lie to the government. I'm not for lying at all, but I'm just making a point, right?
Yeah, great point, Sam. Continuing the quote, Judge Knapp writes, "This dastardly judge-made rule that has no basis in history, constitutional text, or morality has led to a host of false confessions and trick home invasions as federal agents have lied their way into folks' thinking and into their living rooms." End of quote. So the situation apparently is that ICE can break the laws, they can then lie about it, and they can search and seize whatever they want whenever they want. And so who is pushing back? That's my question, Sam. Is there a sheriff out there who is pushing back against this lawlessness that's being perpetrated by ICE, by these federal goons? I mean, I just don't see anybody pushing back yet. I hope that there's sheriffs out there with the guts to push back, but I don't see it in the news. Now, that doesn't mean much because most of the news we get is, filtered through the mainstream media. And so maybe there are some good sheriffs out there pushing back, but I don't see it in Minnesota and I don't see it elsewhere. And so Judge Knapp continues here. He writes this, quote, "The Fourth Amendment requires the government to present evidence of probable cause against the person and to do so to a federal judge and then seek a warrant specifically describing the place to be searched or the persons or things to be seized." End of quote. Right? We've covered this week after week, Sam. I've quoted the Fourth Amendment. I've quoted Judge Knapp, but it's very much worth repeating because we need to be reminded of what the government is supposed to do. Why? Well, so we can remind our public servants of their duty. Well, Judge Knapp is saying this. He says, quote, "In the Fifth Circuit, the feds no longer need an arrest warrant. A panel of 2 judges ruled last weekend that ICE agents can authorize each other to arrest whomever they suspect of being in the U.S. without authorization, and they can do so without an arrest warrant or presentation of evidence." End of quote. Yikes, Sam. Those 2 judges should be impeached yesterday. I mean, where is their fidelity to the Constitution? Where is their oath of office? Where is their loyalty to the rule of law? Because I don't see it in their ruling, in their opinion at all. Judge Knapp writes this, quote, "There is no court ruling quite like this anywhere in the federal system. And we have seen in Minneapolis why an arrest warrant is necessary and why due process is vital. Because the government cannot be trusted to comply with the Constitution, because the government makes mistakes, and because all persons are presumed innocent." End of quote. Well, we've discussed the difference between judicial warrants and general warrants. We discussed it last week in particular, and several weeks before that. See, the British used general warrants, and the colonists, they suffered tremendously from that. I mean, British agents could just walk in your house and, search for anything and everything, go through all your stuff.
Yeah, we don't know what we're looking for, but when we see it, we'll know.
That's right. That's right. And now, folks, we are tolerating administrative warrants in the 3 states that lie in the Fifth Circuit Court jurisdiction, right? Remember, an administrative warrant does not name the place to be searched or the persons or things to be seized. And that's what they're using, folks. That's what ICE is using. If they have any warrant at all, it's an administrative warrant. How did we get here, folks? I think it's apathy, Sam. Our public servants don't care enough because we don't care enough. That's what I think. Well,
I think you're absolutely right about this. I think it's something that's very difficult for people to understand, though, because what Tom Holman would say is, hey, we're obeying the law, or we're mandating the law. If you don't like the law, go change the law, talk to Congress about it. And I think Tom Holman's right on that point. Where I think we've kind of lost the edge here is in America. We've given the general government responsibility to take care of the border. So when one president literally fails at his job, betrays his oath of office, a.k.a. Joe Biden and company, Barack Obama, when they allow the border to leak like a sieve and then they bring in all kinds of illegals, then now the question becomes, hey, what authority does the general government have to remove these illegal criminals? And really the problem is brought on not by accomplishing that goal, but by states and local municipalities not being willing to support the general government in their delegated responsibility. So when somebody gets arrested for rape or pillage or plunder or murder or whatever else, then ICE says, hey, we need to get these people and deport them. And then the local government say, no, we're sanctuary and we're not going to obey. So we're going to go ahead and release this person, and then you can't get a hold of them. And so now, because of that societal breakdown, or that breakdown between governmental institutions fighting one with another, etc., then what happens is the general government says, okay, we got to get bold and take action here. Well, now both are wrong. The folks who deny the general government responsibility to be involved and to carry out their responsibility are wrong. The president letting the border leak like a sieve so we have all these criminals in our country in the first place is wrong. But then what we do is we overstep and we're wrong, and we say, hey, we can just take whatever action we have to because the previous president was a criminal, and hey, we got to do this, and now they're wrong. And so all sides are wrong on this. What we need to do, in my mind, is take a step back, look at the Constitution. People need to support that supreme law, keep their oaths of office. We need coordination between governments to say, hey, we can't just run around and mandate with general warrants and act like we can search and seize wherever and whoever and whatever we want to in these crazy raids. Everybody needs to take a step back. But what we really need to do is look at immigration more like a justice/mercy plan, kind of the way the Lord looks at each of our lives, Lowell, and say, hey, if you're a hardcore criminal, justice is going to take action, no doubt about it, make no mistake. On the other hand, if you're only guilty of coming across a, quote, line or a border, and you have still been a good person, there's ways forward for you, peaceful ways forward. We don't have to make you freak and divide your family and destroy the country or destroy, jobs and industries, and we can have a justice tempered with mercy plan. And if you're only, guilty trespass, if you will, was you came into the country illegally, that's a forgivable offense. It doesn't mean it's an amnesty offense. It does mean that you better get a sponsor to come to America or stay in America. You need an employer to vouch for you. You need someone to basically put money on the bulkhead to say, hey, this person won't end up on the dole. You need to show that you've been willing to be part of a peaceful, stable society. And so I think there's ways through this, and nobody's really coming to the table. We've just got this faux war. Oh, we're anti-ICE. We're pro-ICE. And there's no in between that has common sense, and a justice and mercy plan has sense. It reminds me of this story that my producer, Zach, just emailed me. It's from Turning Point USA, and it's from Riley Gaines. And Riley Gaines is basically saying, hey, there's a bunch of students all across the country that are turning out and protesting ICE and leaving school and demanding ICE accountability and all this kind of stuff. Well, there's a bunch of folks from Turning Point USA and from Club America, I think is what it's called, Club America, and they decided that they're going to not fight ICE, but what they're going to do is spend their time praying for the country. And I think that's what we need a whole lot more of, folks, praying for the country, looking at the laws of our land and saying, hey, if there's laws that are wrong, let's try to correct them. In the meantime, let's coordinate a justice/mercy plan for these immigrants and stuff like that. They're not all the same. The kid that came here, no fault of their own, as a little kid who may be illegal, give them a chance to make it right. Let people move forward. Let people find a way. Now, if you're a hardened core criminal, rapist, you're somebody who is emptied from a gang prison, whatever, from another country, by all means, let's take harsh, swift, justice type action. But let's be very careful. And I think that the big mistake from the general government, Tom Holman and company right now, is that they're saying, well, we're just going to round you up no matter who you are. If you're an illegal, you're illegal and you're a bad guy. I think we need to separate that. Right now, there's a lot of pushback. But if you articulated it right, we're going to get rid of the criminals in our society without a doubt. Make no mistake about that. At the same time, we're not going to bust up families. We're going to give people who are peaceful a chance to move forward. Not amnesty. Amnesty was a disaster under Reagan. But we will have penalties. We will have ways forward. You can leave the country and come back. There's a lot of ways that this could be done in a very productive way that I don't think would make this great divide in the country. And so anyway, I bring that Riley Gaines story up that just got emailed to us to kind of highlight the point. Let's start by praying for our country and praying for each other. And then let's come together with solutions and see what we can do together to make the country great. Nobody wants criminals among us. Even people who are illegally that are peaceful people, they don't want criminals either. No one wants their nation, their neighborhoods destroyed by criminal activity, raping, pillaging, plundering, murdering, stealing. I mean, just look at the 10 Commandments, folks. That's the way forward every time. When we get back, Lowell Nelson, campaignforliberty.org. We'll continue to break this down just for you. Hard-hitting talk. Andrew Napolitano, the good judge, speaks out boldly, and so does our dear friend Ron Paul. You're listening to Liberty Roundtable Live.
pursuing liberty, using the Constitution as our guide. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. California, just one part of the West that could get some wild weather this week.
The National Weather Service warning of a winter storm for parts of California stretching through the week. Meteorologist Jacob Spender in Sacramento says expect up to 8 feet of snow in higher elevations, a foot in lower lying communities, along with showers and thunderstorms in the valley.
Heed any advisories warnings, or anything like that, because we are expecting major impacts, which is a result from the heavy snow combined with the windy conditions, especially up in the mountains.
The Weather Service also warning of major travel impacts.
Pack winter safety kits, anything to be prepared.
This winter storm could also affect parts of Nevada and Oregon. I'm Julie Walker.
We still have hope. We still believe. The words of Today's Show co-host Savannah Guthrie. A new video posted to Instagram as the agonizing search for her mother Nancy goes on after more than 2 weeks. Still no signs that the partial government shutdown will be ending anytime soon.
Democrats in the White House appear dug into their positions in the battle over federal immigration efforts. Democrats are demanding changes to how immigration operations are conducted, but President Trump and his team are resistant to several of their demands. The impasse has led to a pause in funding for the Department of Homeland Security, affecting the TSA, FEMA, the Coast Guard, and the Secret Service, among other agencies. Greg Clugston, Washington.
An oil tanker linked to Venezuela has been seized by the American military in the Indian Ocean. The vessel was tracked from the Caribbean, apparently transporting sanctioned Venezuelan oil. It's said to have departed Venezuela the same day that the U.S. captured dictator Nicolas Maduro. No action on Wall Street today. Financial markets closed for President's Day. More on these stories, townhall.com.
This month, Pure Talk is honoring Jackson and Lincoln by offering unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data for just $25 a month. Meanwhile, Big Wireless is honoring Benjamin Franklin by charging families hundreds of dollars for the same 5G service. What's up with that? Ben Franklin wasn't even a president. When you switch to Pure Talk, you'll be in business with an American wireless company that supports our vets in a big way and keeps all their customer service in this country. That's important. And you'll be on the same towers the big carriers use, so you'll get the same 5G service without the inflated price. So hang on to your Benjamins and switch to Pure Talk for a Jackson and a Lincoln. No contract, no hidden fees. Dial pound 250, say Mike Rowe, and you'll get 50% off your first month when you switch. That's pound 250, Mike Rowe, for an American wireless company that is truly unprecedented. Pure Talk.
If Planned Parenthood were what they publicly declare themselves to be, they would welcome transparency. We all know why they hide, because we know what they hide. We can confirm federal judges who follow the Constitution rather than reverse engineer their preferred policy outcomes. The truth about abortion is spreading because of advances in medical imaging, because of brave journalists, tireless activists, compassionate doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. The rising generation of young Americans is the most pro-life in decades because they know too. And one day soon, we will reaffirm our nation's principles in their dignified fullness and avow once again that all men are created equal. All are entitled to life.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. So glad you're with us here on Liberty Roundtable Live. My name is Lowell Nelson. I'm riding shotgun this morning with Sam Bushman, your host of this show. We're happy to have you. We're talking now about Cuba. Eric Margolis put up a great column. Will Cuba return to U.S. colonial rule? Well, I'm not going to go into all of this column, but I do want to highlight what's happening in Cuba, because it's like a ripple effect, a repercussion of Trump's so-called takeover of Venezuela. Quote, Trump just took over Venezuela with the primary purpose of cutting off the essential oil aid Caracas was giving Havana. Cuba, out of oil, is now shutting down. Half of Cuba's electricity is gone. So too are factories, public transport, flights, and military forces. Food shortages are everywhere. Cuba's tourism business, its economic lifeline, is dying rapidly. Major European, Canadian, and U.S. airlines have canceled flights due to the growing fuel shortage. This strangulation of Cuba is intended to paralyze the island and then provoke uprising against the government. To its credit, Mexico is delivering emergency food aid by sea and says that it plans to provide oil to the besieged island. But this modest aid won't be enough to keep Cuba's 9 million people from starving. End of quote. Wow. You know, how many times have we seen this kind of strangulation? But and with it, we've also seen that it never results in the uprisings that are sought. I mean, supposedly the uprisings are supposed to happen, but they rarely, if ever, happen. The strangulation hurts the poor people the most. It doesn't hurt the established politicians who are in charge of everything. They're still eating high on the hog, while the poor people, they're the ones who suffer. They're the ones without food, without medicine, without aid, without energy, and they're the ones that suffer. Now, can they put together an uprising? Well, usually not. And even if an uprising occurs, how many of them are successful? I mean, you look back through history since 1953, when there have been over 200 regime change operations orchestrated by the CIA. And how many of those, I mean, almost all of them did this kind of strangulation, right? How many of them resulted in an uprising where, you know, the common people, you know, overthrew their government? I just don't think you can count them, you know, on one hand. I just don't think they're there. How many more people get killed and maimed or hurt in the uprising? And so these are honest questions that I have. I mean, I really ought to go back and look, do a little research and see how many of these, you know, strangulations have resulted in the common person, you know, taking over the government and something better happening. Because I just don't think it occurs that often. Sam, do you?
I know it does not occur often, and I understand that. Look, to me, you got to think about the Prince of Peace, who believes in ultimately agency, each individual's ability to choose. And I think preserving agency is a vital thing when it comes to liberty. And the problem that I'm having with this plan is it's doing its very best to literally crush people and force them to do our bidding. I would go a completely different way about it. You know, how did we let the Cuban nation fall into communist hands in the first place? That's where you find when it went off the rails, you got to ask yourself, why did that happen? If we're not very careful when we do this, pretty soon that'll be being done to Taiwan, and we won't have a leg to stand on. The best way is to honor agency. The best way is to invite people to embrace liberty and to help them to do so in a very peaceful, kind way. I think it can be done with trade, with negotiations, with diplomatic relations, with you know, mark and reprisal. There's all kinds of ways, short of war and short of making the people suffer, that could actually advocate for this type of liberty to spread. How do you make liberty spread? The way, in my mind, is you teach the principles of Jesus Christ. You teach the Ten Commandments. You let people learn about and embrace agency and the principles of liberty. It starts with the Ten Commandments. It starts with a civilized society. It starts with thou shalt not kill. It starts with leadership. And I think we could offer them so much in the way of economy and support and, hey, join the free markets. And I think that we could easily turn the tide, but it ain't going to happen with force. Lowell?
Well said, Sam. This is Solutions Radio, ladies and gentlemen. You just heard it from Sam right there. That is the solution. I mentioned the above story, Sam, the previous story, as a segue into an event that you won't want to miss. Gabriela Puckett spoke at a Highland meeting on Friday, November 1st of 2024. That's how I know Gabriela. Because I was at that meeting. I introduced her, and I listened to her whole presentation. It was an awesome presentation. She described the austerity of her life in Cuba under its communist regime. She explained how she was able to leave Cuba with her family and why protecting our freedoms in America is so important. Last week, last week, a Patriot friend in Davis County sent me information that Gabriela will be at the American Fork Library this Saturday, February 21 at 2 p.m. It's being advertised as a Youth for Liberty event. Now, I don't know that organization yet, but I kind of think it's probably Gabriela's own organization. I think she put that together because I know when she talked back in November 24 to us that she was she was passionate about this. She wanted all the youngsters here in America to understand that socialism destroys lives, right? Whereas they're taught in high school that socialism is a good thing. Right, and so the people who are graduating, our current high school students today, are college students and persons just entering the workforce in the last 10 to 15 years. Anybody who's been in the public education in the past decade or so, they have been taught, Sam, that socialism is a good thing and capitalism is a bad thing. That's basically what they got taught. And she wants to dispel that notion.
And hold on, and they got taught that at taxpayers' expense, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. That's right. So Gabriela, she's on a mission. She's on a crusade. She is passionate about this. She wants every young person within, along the Wasatch Front. She lives here, by the way, here in Utah County. She wants everybody, every person she can reach. She wants to let them know, what life was like in communist Cuba. And she has pictures. And she's not. You don't have to just believe what she says. You can watch and look at the pictures that she brought with her of life in Cuba, and dispel, disabuse people of this notion that socialism is a good thing. That's just not the way it is. I mean, she emphasized the importance, really, of helping the youth of America understand that socialism, communism, Marxism, whatever you want to call it, it's a fatally flawed system. And that capitalism is the way you build a strong
fatally flawed, but it's
culture.
a godless system, Lowell. Let's make sure people understand. It's fatally flawed because it's godless.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, folks, if you live anywhere close to American Fork, Utah, please put this event on your calendar, especially if you're in high school or if you're a college student or if you graduated in the last 10 or 20 years. This event is for you. I promise it will be educational. And some of the stories that Gabby will tell you will just chill your blood. I mean, it's horrendous what went on there. And she was like, I think 17 years old when she and her family left Cuba. And she'll tell you that story too. But boy, it is just horrendous. She's going to show you pictures of what life is like in Cuba. You don't have to take her word for it. You get to see how stark it is there. And based on the embargo and our attack on Venezuela, it's probably twice as bad, 3 times, 10 times as bad now as it was when Gabriela was there. I can only imagine how much worse it is now that Cuba is suffering from the lack of oil that because of the sanctions and embargoes. So, folks, please come listen to Gabriela Puckett at the American Fork Library on Saturday, February 21, 2 p.m. You can RSVP.
And by the way, if you guys are anywhere in the country that you don't have a chance to come to this American Fork at the American Fork Library event this Saturday, 2 p.m., then you know what? Get a hold of Gabriela. We need to travel her across the country and put her on a speaking tour, Lowell.
Yeah, we really do. And so you can reach her at this address, Gabby at youthforliberty.org. And you spell Gabby, G-A-B-Y, just 4 letters, Gabby, G-A-B-Y, at youthforliberty.org. And I tell you what, Sam, she will travel. Yeah, org is spelled out, O-R-G, yeah.
No, 4 is spelled out.
4, I'm sorry, 4. Yeah, 4, F-O-R.
Yes.
Yeah, youth, F-O-R, liberty.org. Thank you for that clarification. Sam, she will travel. I mean, she's a young mother. She has a baby. But, boy, she is passionate, and she will travel to speak. I know she's been up to Davis County, talked to them. She's been in Utah County talking to us, and she's coming again. American Fork Library, Saturday, February 21. And well worth the time. Bring your young people. Bring your college-age students, your high schoolers. They need to hear Gabby. Sam?
Youthforliberty.org, ladies and gentlemen. Gabby, G-A-B-Y, at youthforliberty.org. Hang tight. More in seconds. You're listening to Lowell Nelson, campaignforliberty.org on Liberty Roundtable Live.
As a parent, is receiving a faith-based, character-focused education for your children difficult to find? Do you believe that godly principles should be a central component in your child's education? Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character. For over 40 years, American Heritage School has been educating both hearts and minds, bringing out academic excellence. This is the school where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. With American Heritage School's Advanced Distance Education Program, distance is no longer an issue. With an accredited LDS-oriented curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade, your children can attend from anywhere in the world. American Heritage School will prepare your child for more than a job. It will prepare them for life. To learn more, visit American-Heritage.org. That's American-Heritage.org.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Good to be with you on this Monday morning celebrating George Washington's birthday. What a wonderful opportunity. What a day this is. Sam Bushman's your host. My name's Lowell Nelson. I'm riding shotgun with him this morning, this hour, and we're going to talk about the Epstein files briefly here. You know, Thomas Massey has been instrumental in getting the release of the Epstein files. He is a bulldog on this issue. He and California Representative Ro Khanna have stood together and basically forced the DOJ to make available the Epstein files. Now, they've only made 3 million out of the 6 million documents available. That's half of the trove of documents, but that's definitely a great start. And I raised this article to point out the courage of these two representatives, Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna. You know, we talked about Trump's tirade against Massey last week. None of it was true. And maybe he went on that tirade. Trump went on that tirade maybe because he didn't want Massey to do what Massey did to get the Epstein files released. So quoting this column by Blue Apples, I'm not sure who that is or what organization, but they brought out some good points here. Quote, the latest development in the Epstein files fallout has clearly proven that the Trump administration's best attempts to continue to cover up the crimes of Epstein and his accomplices are no match for Massey's vigilance. End of quote. Great quote there. Basically, Massey's efforts have surfaced revelations that show, quote, the lengths that the Trump Department of Justice and the FBI have taken to continue the Epstein cover-up, going as far as to break federal law in an increasingly futile attempt to keep the truth from the American public, end of quote. And so I think it's fantastic what they're doing. You know, what they're uncovering is pretty ugly. We don't need to go into all of that, but it's suffice it to say that Massey and Khanna and others, meaning members of Congress, staff members are not allowed, but members of Congress may and have gone in and looked at the documents, the unredacted documents. They were not permitted to take phones or cameras or electronic devices with them, but they could take notes on paper. And this has led to a monumental, shift in the public's, disapproval rating of the Trump administration's narrative, right? Because they're still trying to hide a lot of what's there, but Massey and Khanna, they've been able to identify a co-conspirator, well, several of the co-conspirators, high profile, and specifically they called out billionaire Les Wexner. In fact, they learned that the FBI had identified him as a co-conspirator way back in 2019, which, of course, runs contrary to the narrative of the Trump, of the DOJ. It has not withheld the identities of any of the notorious pedophiles' accomplices. Guess Wexner is not notorious enough, huh? So in September of 2025, Patel testified before Congress regarding Epstein. He was asked, well, who did Epstein traffic these young women to? And Patel responded, just himself. In other words, he's saying there's no credible information that he trafficked the young girls to other individuals. Well, this
and then my question would be, how is he a convicted felon then?
Yeah, great question. And so this revelation that the FBI had confirmed that Wexner was a co-conspirator back in 2019, that suggests that Patel lied to Congress during his testimony. And it wasn't just Wexner, it was half a dozen other of these high-level co-conspirators. And so under 18 U.S.C. 1001, knowingly and willingly making a material false, fictitious, or fraudulent statement to Congress is a felony punishable by a prison sentence of up to 5 years. Wow. And so that's what, if Patel were to be prosecuted, that might be his lot. And Pam Bondi might be prosecuted too, because she was in on the lie. She tried to lie to the American public, say, we don't have those files, right? They don't exist, or whatever she said. Well, she knew darn well that they existed, and so she basically lied to Congress. Kash Patel lied to Congress, and that explains the title of this column, which is that Massey exposes Les Wexner as an Epstein co-conspirator, opening the door to criminal charges against Kash Patel. What very interesting.
And who thought a year ago that the deep state would be led by Donald Trump, Kash Patel, and Pam Bondi? Lowell. Think about that for a minute. Right now, that's what's happening. Thomas Massey is fighting the deep state, trying to get the truth on the record, trying to create accountability, and you got Kash Patel, Donald Trump, Pam Bondi and company, all acting like Massey's the problem. Massey's the bad guy. Massey's the enemy. Who couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Sam. Two other names I should report here. Bill Gates is one of the big bad guys. The Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he's a sultan from the Emirate States, and he's one of the big bad guys. U.S. Representative Lauren Boebert, who's a Republican from Colorado, she viewed some of the unredacted documents too. She was a really strong ally of Trump's once upon a time, but boy, she came away angry, very angry. And I watched this little clip last night of a reporter asked her about Ghislaine Maxwell, and Boebert replied, quote, "I think Ghislaine Maxwell should get more time, and she should definitely be in a harsher prison. It's absolutely disgusting," end of quote. Well, pretty.
And I wonder, what about that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sam, you there?
That's
Sam?
the old friend.
Yeah, he is breaking up. Just one other quote from this column from Blue Apples. Basically, it says, quote, "In November, President Trump attempted to persuade Representative Boebert to remove her name from the discharge petition that ultimately led to the passage of the Epstein Files Transparency Act." That was the one pushed by Massey. And so Trump similarly, now this is new information to me, I didn't know about this, but Trump similarly took that tactic against other key allies of his in Congress, including Representative Nancy Massey of South Carolina, and then Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. That futile effort to continue to insulate the co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein resulted in an irreconcilable schism with Greene, which led to her resignation from Congress. Well, following the announcement of her resignation, Greene revealed that Trump attempted to persuade her to vote against releasing the Epstein files because their disclosure would harm friends of his who would be implicated in them. End of quote. Wow. See, that last statement was news to me, Sam, but it makes sense that that's what happened, right? I mean, efforts
well,
by
and
the
you
Trump
know that Donald Trump
administration-
and Bill Clinton are great friends, right?
Oh, yeah. And Bill Gates, too, probably, and all these other guys, because that's who Trump was trying to protect. But the cat got out of the bag, and he can't protect him now, and it's turning the tide of opinion against his administration. So, and it's just a matter of time, Sam, before this house of cards comes crashing down, if you ask me.
That's if enough of the American people stand up and defend Thomas Massey and defend Rand Paul and defend, others who are trying to get to the truth on this thing, defend Greene and defend everybody else. Look, I'm not interested in people. I'm interested in principle. And the fact is, when people lie, when people cover up, it's got to stop. I don't know what we do with 6 million documents on somebody in the first place, but most of it's redacted, most of it's salacious. For example, they say Bill Gates got an STD from a Russian hooker and all this kind of stuff. We don't need those details. What I want to know is, number one, who's guilty and needs to be prosecuted? In other words, who are the co-conspirators? But secondly, most importantly, what I want to know is this sex ring still continuing? Usually when a gang leader gets taken out or a drug pin gets taken out, then somebody else fills the vacuum. Who's filled the vacuum? Who's taking the place of Jeffrey right now in carrying on this criminal enterprise? That's what we should really be focused on, Lowell.
Yeah, because that will, if we can figure that out, we can then stop this from continuing or from staying in existence. So you're exactly right, Sam. And this leads us to the final article I want to bring up is by Caitlin Johnstone. The title of her article is, "If You Think Our Rulers Do Bad Things in Secret, Wait Till You See What They Do Out in the Open." I mean, and boy, she lays this out. I mean, I agree, Sam, that what, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein were doing is horrible. But listen to this. Speaking of what the Western world is doing openly, launched a live stream genocide in full view of the entire world. Speaking of Gaza, right? They're openly targeting civilian populations with siege warfare in Iran and Cuba in full view of the entire world. They openly kidnapped the president of a sovereign nation in full view of the entire world. Now, Caitlin Johnson goes on with a dozen of these indictments and then says, look, folks, you're freaking out about the Epstein files? Look at what they're doing in full view of the whole world. She says, pay attention to the Epstein files, yes, but don't forget to also pay attention to the far greater evils they are inflicting in full view of the entire world. Sam?
And understand, ladies and gentlemen, that the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, especially on George Washington's birthday, is the guide. That's where the goalposts are, ladies and gentlemen. When they square with the Constitution, we support them. When they're not, we got to stand against them, folks. It's a matter of principle. I'm Sam Bushman for Lowell Nelson, CampaignForLiberty.org. We are syndicated by the Loving Liberty Network, LovingLiberty.net. Spread the word, share the love, and God save the Republic of the United States of America.